Thank you for staying tuned. It is still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Now, away from talks about movie directing and all, we'll be looking at family support for people with Down syndrome. Now, this is an important topic. Raising a child or supporting a loved one with Down syndrome comes with unique challenges. And our guest today will be sharing real-time practical knowledge on how, and this information can help families, cope, caregivers cope with and taking care of people with Down syndrome. Joining us on the conversation this morning is Jabirah Anike Bada. She is a founder, Chromosome Champions. You're welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Busayo Fashina. She is a mother of a child with Down syndrome. You're welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let me start with you, Busayo. What was your initial emotion when you first got the diagnosis of your child?
I got the diagnosis for Adedamola after I had him.
So how old is Adedamola?
Adedamola is 3 now.
3, okay.
Yes. So it was what I felt was first shame. Much more than any other thing. It was just shame. Because you're wondering, well, why do I have this? Shame on fear. Fear for what's going to come for Adedamola. Fear about the quality of life he's going to have. Then the shame of, why do I have a child with disability? Because I've lived the shame, the culture of shame in Nigeria. I've seen people do it also. It's now, the spotlight is now on me. It's now me. So that was the first emotions that I felt.
I'll come back to how you were able to overcome this fear, those emotions. I'll come back to that. Let's come to you, Jabirah. Yeah, I was going to call you Busayo. Now, you are the founder, Chromosome Champions. How did this all come into being?
Well, mostly this came because of my brother Adedamola. He really opened my eyes to a lot and how negligent I have been towards people with genetic disorder or special needs. So, of course, when my mom brought him home, I didn't really notice anything that was wrong. Maybe it's because of the environment I grew up in or the people that are around me, but I didn't really notice until she sat me down and then she told me about, him having Down syndrome. And that just made me realize that there are probably many other people like me with siblings, cousins, or relatives with Down syndrome that are also blindsided to what it is or don't know what to do or the proper care or adequate care that they can give to those individuals or children.
I promise not to talk, but now you just got me emotional because one, I have a brother who passed on about 10 years ago. His name is Adedamola.
Wow.
He was a physical challenge boy. So for years we had to carry him from one place to the other because... okay, so having said that, the question is, so what woke you up to saying, I know the spotlight is on me, but you're a mother, so how did you wake up from that little lull you were in to the reality of getting information on how to take care of this baby? What available resources do I need to ensure that, at least to a large extent, he will find a soft landing to live life?
Okay, let me start with this. Adedamola is actually a twin. I had 2 of them. Okay. And his twin brother, Adebambo, nothing, they have any genetics. So as they're growing, of course in my moments of grief and all of that, I see Adedire and Adebambo trying to meeting his own milestones, and Adedamola is just there, not really doing anything, no neck control, no all of that. And then that broke my heart, and I said, well, this boy can't be like this for the rest of the day. There are things that I should be able to do. And then thank goodness for a mom that helped me. I reached out to her because I saw her on Instagram. She's always posting about her son. I reached out to her and she created a community for me, Twins Mama, and then that community actually really helped me a lot.
You're able to draw strength
from them, yes. She shared many parents of twins. Adedamola's birth is very rare. Twins with one of them that has Down syndrome is very, very rare. So she was able to gather mothers that have some twins with Down syndrome, some only one. She gathered a huge community for me. And I see 17. Well, let me say this, they are all living in the US.
Okay.
So she said, so I was just like, okay, if a child is living in the US and they can do this, why not? So I replicated everything she shared with me here, and that's how I've been able to help her.
So it's more of the support system as against
Yes.
going to a particular place to learn how it is done.
Yes, a support system. They tell me, okay, you need to start speech therapy. So immediately we came back. Adida was born in the US. So immediately we got back, that was in my head. So Adida started speech therapy at 3 months. He started physiotherapy at 3 months, occupational therapy at 6 months. So, and that is why we are here. That's why I'm advocating for early intervention, because I see what he has done for Adida.
Also, I was going to ask, how important is early intervention?
Very, very important. Very, very.
Okay, so perhaps the question for you is, what is, because now you know about this, because I won't say maybe because you're in the urban area, but there are millions of people going through this in Nigeria. No form of information, no access to any facility, and I guess that's one of the challenge we had, because we had to move to the north. My Damola had this therapy here in Lagos, but when we moved to the north, Niger, there was nowhere to go for any physio or anything. It was my mom and the fact that she has born a witch, a wizard, so many names call it. And they said it's the devil or something. So my question to you is, what is top on your mind every time you think about what you intend to do to help people with Down syndrome?
The first thing that is always top, or my main priority, is more healthcare institutions that offer these therapies, occupational physiotherapy, but don't come at ridiculous prices. Because frankly, when Adida started all this therapy, my mom had to pay almost 600,000 a month for private institutions, which is a whole lot of money, until they took him to Igbobi, which is a government hospital. But still, the wait times is ridiculous, because you have to pick like numbers, and then you can be there for hours, and they always have to leave the house early. So I want government institutions where everybody can go, but there won't have to be all these ridiculous wait times, and it's also cheap and affordable for people or the less privileged who don't have access to as much funds as people in the urban area will have.
I know you're talking about it now, and this is one part of what you intend to do, the advocacy part of it. But how many people have you garnered to support you in your quest? How many people are you speaking to? Which agency of government have you reached out to? And I mean, what's the response from people that you think can move the needle a little bit?
Yeah, I've given talks at multiple places, and the response is always like very curious, like a lot of people wanting to know more. And at a point, I think I spoke to some youths who were in like university, and based on their different departments, they kept asking questions like, oh, what if they have somebody with Down syndrome? As a businessman, what would they do about it? And then also people in general. And then, funny enough, I believe that, okay, yeah, I might not be at my milestone right now, but I believe that I am getting my awareness to people gradually, and I plan to reach places so high up whereby my face will be all over television internationally, and then I would be known as one of the people who were able to spread information, awareness to not just families, but just individuals in general. I believe that with where my advocacy is going, I believe that at a point, government institutions will be made. And as for who I've spoken to, I went for this event, and then the Minister of Health sent a representative, and I spoke to him about it, and I challenged him about it. And then he put it down, and he said he's going to think about it.
Okay, maybe that's why I went to the end. Perhaps just to just push on that point a little bit, because in this country, people can get emotional on the immediate.
Yeah.
Then what do they do about it if there's no pressure? Some kind of, because I'm sure you know about that, the fact that 2024 budget, 2025 budget hasn't been implemented to its full in 2026, by the way. So there isn't enough resources to move on, especially when you now think of, so what's wrong with the baby? So we have not finished with primary health care center, malaria and this thing. We want us to have specialized centers for this. I'm sure. So what kind of strategies do you intend to deploy, apart from making sure that your face is everywhere? But what kind of strategy do you think will appeal to these people? Because the narrative need to change. Some of these people have resources. Some of them, the people in power now, have the resources, so they can easily take their kids abroad and just have a caretaker, someone take care of it. But in Nigeria, so what do you think will be your strategy? Is that too difficult? I mean, your strategy to ensure that
this works,
you can answer
ensure that
this thing works. This thing, people get the message, and we have more facility that they will create, maybe even in the general hospital
or even the primary health center.
It's to address some of this thing and perhaps cut down on the wait time.
Yeah, I also think that there should be more awareness for Down syndrome, because most of the time you always see, oh, Autism Day, Mental Health Day, but rarely will you ever see somebody say that, oh, it's Down Syndrome Awareness Month, or rarely will there ever be exhibitions or talks about Down syndrome. So if there are more talks and more people and there's more light shed onto Down syndrome, I feel like then they would be pressured to make more institutions, because now, you know, at a point they started, everybody knows what autism is, everybody is constantly thinking about autism. Anytime we talk about special needs, the first thing that comes to your head, autism, or this child is autistic, but they don't really know what Down syndrome is, and then there's a lot of myths and everything. So if there's more light being shed on Down syndrome and there are more awareness days, there's more, oh, wear this color to help support Down syndrome the same way they're doing for breast cancer, the same way they're doing for autism. I believe that there is no how this will reach people and this will reach the government. And obviously people will be pressured because, like you said, Africans and Nigerians are very quick to get emotional. So if these emotions are reaching them, obviously they'll start to pester the government, like, we need to do something about these children, we need to do something about these children. And if millions of people come together to bring their voices and it's just not one person advocating, then definitely the government won't have a choice but to at least, maybe not fully, but at least start implementations that will help people or individuals with special needs.
Okay, can I say something
Sure.
about that? Yeah, okay. There's a particular incident. I think she should say this herself in Abulegba.
Yes.
So
during my advocacy journey, we went to go and give talks to Abulegba, the market women there. And then as we were giving talks, this woman spoke about a woman whose child might be showing signs of Down syndrome. And then, you know, my mom conversed with her in Yoruba. We got the address of the woman and we went to go and meet her, and then we spoke to her about her child, and we said we were going to come back tomorrow with help for her child, because she was always locking the child away. Everybody knew she always locked him inside. Yes, and that brings me back to the culture of shame. They always locked him away because she didn't want people to see her child. And then the next day we got there, the woman had fled with her child because she believed that we were coming to take her child away rather than help the child. And it's probably because she doesn't know that there is help that can be given to this child. So she probably assumed that maybe we're child protective services and we just want to take her child away. So in our rush for protection of her child, she may not realize it, but she might be endangering the child. And the help that we're meant to give him at an early stage, it might end up becoming a problem in future. And then, you know, my mom cried, I cried, because it's honestly very sad, because there's probably millions of other people that are going through the same thing, but we don't know about it. And the main problem is always that culture of shame. It's always in African social circles where they were like, oh, I don't want it to be seen that my child is this. Or like you said, for your brother, where they're like, he's a wizard. The insults. They don't want to be seen as that person that is carrying something that they should be ashamed about, or carrying a baby that has some sort of genetic disorder, because they're afraid of what other people will say. And I believe it's probably because these people are not being educated to the point where they need to understand that there is nothing wrong with having a genetic disorder, and it's not something the child can control, neither is it something that the mother herself can control. And once it has happened, the best thing for you to do is to give the child the adequate support, the adequate intervention to help them grow and become independent human beings in future who can strive and work in their everyday society.
Beautiful, beautiful talk there. And then let me come to you. From your community that you belong to, and of course tackling the culture of shame, I'd like you to first of all dispel some myths about Down syndrome, and then share with us what are some unique strengths of people with Down syndrome.
Well, the first thing is the impression that they cannot learn, that they're slow.
So that's a myth.
That's a myth. It's not true. yes, there may be a bit of delay, but they definitely can learn. I've seen the strength that my son has, the progress he has made, and how emotional smart he is. Now, I don't know if this one, she's the one that actually told me, said something to me one day. She said, Mommy, you know that thing that they said about children with Down syndrome, you know that it might not be true. I said, how do you mean? She said, you know that a child can have Down syndrome and also be autistic. And she said, but when you're looking at the child, you're saying this child cannot learn because they have Down syndrome. You're not thinking that there may be other learning difficulties going on. And so because of that, you don't give them adequate help. And when she said that, I went into it and I was just like, because I've seen children with Down syndrome that they say, oh, they're slow, they cannot learn anything, they cannot do anything. And I think that is one of the myths. And the second word that they say that they are very friendly. We have a different opinion about Adedamola. Adedamola can be mean when he wants to be mean. He doesn't want you to talk to him. You cannot talk to him. He doesn't want you to touch him. You cannot touch him.
He has his own personality.
So, they say, oh, they're always very friendly with everybody. You can touch them. You can friend. No, that's not true. Because Adedamola has his own emotions. You cannot just come and, if he's angry or he's upset, you can't tell him, oh, take this one. No, he's going to tell you, no, I don't want it. Don't give it to me. And then, so definitely that is not true. So that's that one. And then the one thing that I say every time is that you should be ashamed of them. I don't think, I felt shame initially, like I said, but later that disappeared because at that time, the overall love that I have for my son and the willingness and the strength to fight for him to have a thriving life supersedes whatever shame I was feeling as a mother initially. And she actually she did most of the moving actually, because the way she stood up and she handled Adedamola kind of gave me strength. And that's why I try to encourage her that, well, you can go ahead and last year, September, was October, World Down Syndrome Month. She was able to raise almost over ₦1 million for the Down Syndrome Foundation. She was calling my friends and sending the Down Syndrome Foundation of Nigeria, Mrs. Rosemodi's account number to them. I need to raise money because she is saying, okay, we can't just be doing all the advocacy if we cannot provide any kind of support, no matter how small. And I said, okay, Mom, where can we do? I said, well, there is Down Syndrome Foundation of Nigeria. We can raise money for them to be able to put therapists in place. And people go in there. Fantastic center. They help children. So that's the center I wanted to take the woman she was talking about in Abule Egba to show her the place that you can actually come here
and get help.
Mrs. Rosemodi, wonderful woman. She's doing a fantastic job. If you see these children with Down syndrome, they are learning, they have vocational skills, they're doing a lot of things. And that's where I wanted to take her to the following. Then I told her, well, it's late now. I'll come tomorrow morning to take you where you can give your child support, because I know that you cannot afford it, I know. But I know there are occupational therapists there, there are speech therapists there, there are physiotherapists there that will help you. And it's very minimal, because like you said, the wait time at government hospitals, I don't wish it to my, I've been there. I wake up as early as 5 a.m. to get to Bobi for Adedamola to get physiotherapy or occupational therapy. I leave my job. That affected my finances, my income a little bit. But it's what I have to do, because I just did it for a period of 2 years. They said Adedamola will be able to work till he's 4. Adedamola started working at 2. He started working at 2. They said Adedamola can climb the stair, come down. He feeds, he eats by himself, he drinks water by himself, he feeds himself. He's almost getting ready to start to take his own, to shower for himself. So I know that I disagree that there cannot be help. There is help. Even with cerebral palsy, I've seen children with cerebral palsy do great things. I've seen, because those are the most severe part of yes. I've seen cerebral palsy children do well. I've seen autistic children thrive. So there's no limitation. I don't believe there's any limitation for any child with any form of disability, no matter what.
That situation you painted in Abule Egba depicts what is happening all over the country. And you can just imagine how many people have fled, how many people have lost their jobs, how many people have felt husbands have left their mothers, and of course women have been, in fact, have gone into depression by virtue of what happened. So that scenario, you can just imagine if you reach out to other communities, the stories you're going to hear. So we bring me to the question of how do we begin to, back to the needle, move the needle, in small bits and pieces. How do we begin to get things done? I love the fact that you said she was able to raise $1 million plus last year. That's an actuality, that's a reality that, look, you're putting money somewhere that can help encourage other mothers and other kids to achieve their potential. So what areas do you think in the immediate, the low-hanging fruit of government dealing with this issue? What policy do you think can be put in place? How can government come into play to help this? Because that's the whole essence of being here. How can we get this message out there in actual terms?
Well, for it's like I said, it's I may not have the strength for the advocacy.
But you know where the shoe pinches, so you know exactly what you see.
Yes, I know.
Should be. Then we'll push the advocacy.
Yes, I take her. I drive her to the marketplace. That's how we ended up in Abule Egba. Sometimes I look for local markets and I drive her there. Well, she tells me, "Mommy, where can I go to today?" And then I drive her there and I park the car. I give her a public address system and she goes in and she speaks to the women there. Sometimes she has difficulty because of her Yoruba. She has difficulty communicating with them. And I step in sometimes to tell her, okay, you can speak Pidgin. So she tries to speak to them in Pidgin. And it is one of those, because that is how we come across the Abule Egba woman. And from that time that we came across that woman, Jabirah has been on full flesh. She was just, "Mommy, let's go." Because I know there are people like that woman. But at the same time, I have a job. I need to provide for my family. I cannot wake up every day. She has to go to school. So there's very limited things that we can do. But the major thing that she is pushing for, advocates for, is for us to start going to school. Because the truth is, I tell her, people in my generation, maybe we got to the party a bit late. But your generation, if you start with your generation, we can have better and more impactful results with our generation, because
that's where you think that's where we should start from, right?
Yes, that's where we should start from my generation. That's why I encourage her to go to school. She's giving talks in places. She was at the Rotary Youth Academy, Youth Leadership Academy. She was there. They invited her. She spoke to about over 500 children, youths her age, and I saw the result of that, because before we left there, she was able to create like a group of young people who are going to their communities to spread the message, and that's where we can start. There's little we can do, but we can just take it one step at a time.
Okay, let's talk about our education system now, looking at social inclusion for children with special needs. What more do you think must be done by the government and by private institutions as well?
Yeah, one thing I believe shouldn't really be happening is schools that are specialized only for children with special needs. Because at the end of the day, I feel like it will still further slow their development if they're around people with conditions just like they have. There won't be that diversity and they will all end up being dependent on each other. But you can still go to school with your other mates while still being included. Like normal schools now, no schools are specialized in Down syndrome. They should have like facilities and teachers or assistant teachers that can help children with those special needs while still having them in the midst of other children, so that there will be diversity, so that when they end up growing up and they go to other places or they meet other people of different ethnicities, different conditions, and even the ones without any medical conditions per se, they won't have a hard time trying to fit in, because they are so accustomed to having to stay with other people that have autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome. Education systems like that. And I feel like I said, like my mom said before, Down syndrome, people often assume that they can't learn, but it's always because there is a second diagnosis. You can have Down syndrome and then be autistic. You can have Down syndrome and then have ADHD. You can have Down syndrome and have a stutter. But nobody really pays attention to those second diagnoses, because the individual having Down syndrome kind of overrides any other thing. So when they see them struggling, and the thing is that even if you don't have any medical condition, you can still be slow at learning. You can still be bottom of your class. Exactly. Exactly. You can still be bottom of your class, but nobody really thinks deep about it. Just be like, oh, that child just can't learn. There's nothing wrong. But because that individual has Down syndrome, I had like, okay, that's the reason why they can't. And this dates back all the way even to the 18th century, before Down syndrome was discovered by John Langdon Down. They used to put them in asylums, institutions for mad people, people who are suffering from mental health, because they believe that they were also, you know, something wrong is with them in their head. Yes. So they would put them in no proper care, just lock them in there and put them with other people with Down syndrome. And it didn't help them to develop, it didn't help them to grow. Even with all the exercises and everything they're doing, there's still no development because they've not really met other people who...
Well, coincidentally, I don't know, maybe because... so my kids, two schools they've been to, the school they will tell you that we've got placement for kids with special needs. So I think some schools are in tune, but I'm sure some schools are not in there. But my final question to you is, at what point will you say this message I'm trying to preach is having the desired results? What time, what will you see make you feel that way?
When the culture of shame is starting to disappear almost completely. Because at the end of the day, the reason why most people don't get this information or like early intervention is because their first instinct is fear and to hide the child away. So they don't bother learning about that, or how can I make this child's life better? And it's also negligence, because half of the time, youths and people my age, sometimes it's an insult. Like, oh, why do you act like you have Down syndrome? If I can get rid of that negligence, once that negligence is gone, once that form of bullying, once that form of cultural shame is gone, that's when I can say that, yes, all my hard work and everything that I've been doing is starting to pay off. If not, then I still have to work harder, and I will do whatever it takes. Because to me, this is my calling, and this is one of my main purposes in life.
Oh, that's good to know. And for you, perhaps your parting short, it's good to know that Damola is doing well. So that's a relief for me as well. Yeah. But for you, what makes you happy knowing that you're pushing this message, and what would be the end result for you?
Well, majorly it's for early intervention, for help, for early intervention for all children with any kind of special needs. For parents to know that you can actually help your child. You can actually help your child to get better. And most importantly, for prenatal diagnosis. Very important.
Can that be done?
Yes, it can be done. Yes, it can be done.
Okay.
It can be done. They do something that they call the... yes, exactly. Is it affordable? They do something they call the anomaly scan when you are like 20 weeks or thereabouts. And that scan is for measuring whether there is any irregular measurements. You know, they have measurements for neck, they measure all of that collarbone. And now, children with Down syndrome, they have irregular nose. So when they check it and it's long, they'll tell you, okay, we should do further testing. But if there is no irregular measurements, like that is what happened with Adedamola, because I did an anomaly scan and there was no irregular measurements. Down syndrome people are short, Adedamola is tall. You know, they have, his neck is not short. So when they were doing the anomaly scan, the readings were not showing any irregular measurements. So there was no reason for further testing. Okay. Until it came out. So in that kind of, for a woman that is over 40, I did Adedamola over 40. The best thing is that in places like the US, it is mandatory. There will be Down syndrome testing for you, genetic testing for you and your child.
Age also matters. Age also matters.
Yes, age matters, yes. Age plays a point, but it doesn't matter all the time, because I've seen 20-year-olds.
I'm about to tell my wife that. Don't
No. That's the wrong assumption. I'm sorry. We have, well, it is scientifically they say age matters, but we've seen mothers who are 20-year-olds that have children with Down syndrome. So I think it's just a chromosomal issue, a chromosomal dysfunction that happens at the point of conception, and that is if it's done, it's done. But if we have prenatal testing that can actually say there is Down syndrome, even though I am not an advocate of getting an abortion, even if you have a child with Down syndrome, because when I look back, I tell myself, even if they had done the testing and they had said to me,
this is the situation.
Would I be able to
willing to
do the abortion?
Yeah.
The answer is no. So, but maybe it would have prepared me beforehand to get ready for his arrival and to put better plan in place to help him do better, because I grieved the first 3 months. I couldn't post that I have a child. I was ashamed. I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want anybody to know. In fact, I thought about declaring that I had only 1 child instead of 2. You know, it was that bad that I was going to hide him. But, well, going forward, if I had had prior knowledge, it would have helped me to come to terms with the matter and will have prepared more better.
Okay, with the knowledge you have gathered now and the experience that you have, for a mother who is at this point in life, who has just had a child with Down syndrome and is considering, maybe I should declare to the world that I don't have a child and all, what are the things that helped you pull through that you can share with that mother right now?
The first thing is, I know that every mother loves their child. So I think every mother should draw from that strength of the love for their child first, before any other thing. And they should remember that giving that child the appropriate help, early intervention is key. I would never advise any mother to skip that. Even if you have to, whatever you have to do, if you have to wake up at 4 in the morning to go and be in line, please get up and be in line. Because it's better for you to go through the pain now and then do it later. Because how will you feel by 30, 19? You have a 19-year-old child with you, living with that is solely dependent on you. Meanwhile, if you go through the pain now, in the next 7 years, you'll be out of the wood. There's a very likely chance that that child will not be dependent on you. Because even right now, we go into a park, Adedamola is 3 years old, he sees other children, he's leaving me and he's going on to play with his, because he doesn't see himself as being different. So that is what you have to put it. So as a mom, a new mom with the diagnosis, I'll tell you, you should not be scared. There's nothing to be scared of. You just have to put in the work now, because overall, at the long run, you'll be...
It will pay you off.
It will pay off.
Thank you so much for sharing insights and, of course, your experience and knowledge on family support for people with Down syndrome. Thank you again, Jabirah Anike Bada. She's the founder, Chromosome Champions, and Busayo Fashina, a mom of a child with Down syndrome. Wish you the very best.
Thank you.
All right, the conversation continues. Stay with us.